Again, I'm Curtis Cartier. I'm a lead developer at Webstacks. It's an agency that builds fast moving, composable websites for clients. Today, I wanted to share something that has had a huge impact on how we scale our development process while keeping quality high. If you've ever written a Grok query and held your breath hoping you didn't mistype a field, or if you've tried to juggle TypeScript types after the fact, you'll know exactly why I went looking for something like Grok. This talk is called locking down your sanity types because that's exactly what Grok helps us do. It's a developer first way of querying sanity while with type safety, reusability, and confidence baked in. And if you already love sanity, I think you're going to love what Grok brings to the table even more. At Webstacks, I lead a team shipping a lot of structured content through Sanity. Our clients move fast and we need to move even faster. But it's not just about speed. We care deeply about doing things right. So our real challenge wasn't just shipping quickly, it was doing this consistently without regressions and with a high bar of quality, even as projects grew in size and complexity. As we scaled, I started thinking about what kind of system would really support that, something that could reduce rework, minimize bugs, and help us catch issues early, ideally before they even made it into QA or staging. I wanted the IDE to act as a safety net to tell us immediately when a query might be broken or out of sync with our schema. The same way TypeScript catches a wrong prop or missing return type, I wanted the same experience, but with Grok. I also wanted to write queries in a more intentional way, not just strings, but something that felt structured, reusable, and readable. Something that made it clear what data we expected to give other devs confidence when reading or updating the query. At Webstacks, our vision is to build fully composable websites where the front end is structured through atomic, reusable components, and the CMS reflects that same philosophy through block level content management. Because of that, we don't just design components to be reusable, we expect their data needs to be just as modular. If a component, uh, like a blog card, needs a title, an image, a date, an excerpt, we want to define that once and reuse it confidently across different parts of the site. Ideally, we wanted to create query fragments that mirror our components, self-contained, composable, and easily pulled into larger queries. Not just copy pasta field sets, but authoring them as clear, reusable units with validation built in. We also wanted those fragments to generate those types locally, right next to the component that consumes them. That way, our components stay in sync with the query that feeds them, and the TypeScript types are always accurate without relying on external codegen pipelines or fragile string parsing. That level of composability, where query logic, type definitions, and component structure are all aligned, is what we were really aiming for. Something that could scale with the team and reduce the surface area work for bugs, regressions, and rework. Excuse me. So let me say this first. We love Grok. Grok is awesome. The flexibility and the expressiveness, the power it gives you to shape exactly what your data needs is one of the reasons we chose Sanity in the first place. And we still rely on it heavily. But as our projects and our team grew, we started running into friction, not because of Grok was bad, but because the paradigm didn't quite fit the way that we were trying to work as a front-end team in a highly typed TypeScript environment. We tried using standard tooling, write the Grok query, then run the Sanity type gen to generate the types from the response, and that works to a point. But the process was always reactive. You write your query, then generate the types afterwards. If the query is broken or if it doesn't match what your component expects, you won't know until the types are generated, or worse, until runtime. The feedback loop was slow. We'd find ourselves writing a Grok query, running type gen, checking the generated types, then bouncing between the two, hoping everything lined up. There was no instant confidence that the query matched the TypeScript expectations. And when it came to reuse, composing fragments was still a manual string-based process. It didn't really encourage modular query design the way that our components are designed to be modular. So at the end of the day, when even with TypeGen, it felt like we were duct taping type safety onto Grok rather than working with a system that was truly designed with type safety in mind. So enter Grok. GROQD with a D at the end. After hours of hacking on our own helpers, trying to validate field names, build fragments, and tie them back to TypeScript, I randomly stumbled upon GROQD, and immediately it just worked. It felt like Zod, but for Grok. A way to define your queries as code, not just strings. You're explicitly stating what you want in a way that works seamlessly with TypeScript. What blew me away, TypeScript knew exactly what I was fetching. Autocomplete worked. If I renamed a field, TS will flag it. If I misspell something, you'll know right away. Compose a fragment and reuse it. It's super clean. Grok is incredibly powerful, but like any flexible language, it can be hard to enforce consistency and safety, especially across a large team. When Grokked, with the D at the end, what it did was give us a structured way to layer type safety on top of Grok, while still benefiting from everything that makes Grok expressive and developer friendly. It gave us confidence. Grok didn't just add types, it changed how we approached querying altogether. It made the process more intentional, more reusable, and ultimately easier to scale. Great. So let's look at this from the perspective of a basic Grok query. Here, we're fetching a document of type post. We're grabbing the title and then resolving the author reference and getting name, and we're also getting a list of category titles. This kind of query is super easy to read. It's expressive, it's compact, and for quick prototyping or CMS tooling, it's perfect. But as we mentioned earlier, there are some trade-offs. There's no static type validation. So if author name doesn't exist, or let's say it's author first name, last name, or if categories looking for title is structured differently, like maybe title is rich text and not a normal string, the query won't catch that until runtime. You also don't get autocomplete while you're creating this query, and there's nothing stopping you from accidentally mistyping a field name or projecting the wrong shape. So it's flexible, but that flexibility also means you carry some more risk while things scale. Excuse me again. Now, let's take a look at a query that what that could look like in Grok. First thing that you're going to notice, there's more text, and developers hate more text; they like less, but it is what it is. It is more verbose, but what we get in return is massive. It's fully type safe. My ID tells me exactly what I can and can't do. If the field is renamed or removed, I'll know it the moment I hit save. It feels a bit like Zod. And if you've used Zod in the past, it looks almost identical to Zod because it really is a reskinning of it. You're not just writing the query, you're describing the shape of the data up front. One thing I love here is that the structure is just the structure. I'm declaring exactly what I want, and Grok builds the Grok string for me. I don't have to manually write aliases or double check brackets. I just focus on the data that I need. And just like components, I can extract this into a reusable fragment and drop it into another query. The result, way less guesswork, fewer bugs, and a query layer that scales with your code base. Now we've kind of seen the side by side. I want to jump into a real example and show you how this actually plays out in code. And we'll define a query together, walk through how the fragments work, and I'll show you the TypeScript catches issues live as we make changes. So one second while I make that magic happen. Now you just get a look at my face while I juggle technology. Okay, I'm seeing the screen and I'm hoping that all of you can see the screen. Can somebody in chat just give me a thumbs up that everything's swapped around? Perfect, thank you. So I wanted to start off with a basic setup, right? We set up our client. I've already set all this up. We have our project IDs and everything. So this is our basic client. And then a Grok query that is looking for type demo. We're validating it by slug. And then we're receiving our title. We're looking for excerpt, which is rich text. Typically, I wouldn't use an ellipsis here because I want to always be getting the exact data that I'm needing in the end. But I was going fast here, so sorry. Then we're looking for the featured image and the content. We're running our super cool app. And sorry about that, dry mouth. and then we're fetching the data, passing in our parameter of cool app, and then just showing JSON. I wasn't going to make it fancy for you guys. I just want to show you that the data is here. Cool. So now let's take a look at what this looks like with GROQD. So first off, there's more boilerplate. There almost always is. So first, we need to create a run query app. So this here is we're going to need make safe query runner, which this is pretty much taking what you'll see here, the client fetch, same as down here, and wrapping it so that while we have this, it's also going to output the types and it's going to create the schema for us. So it's kind of doing that two things. It's separating out your GROQD query so that it can create those types, as well as create the query itself in Grok so that you can just pass that into Sanity. Next, we need to define the types that we get from our type generator. And I already have that. I'm already placed those here for us. And that's just all the types inside my schema. And we're passing it into GROQD with this GROQD query builder. So this is where that queue comes in, create GROQD query builder. And what this does is we are now intelligently going through all of these Sanity types, and Q now knows what those are. So as we type our query, we will know exactly what that is. So let's go ahead. We can comment that out. We don't really need that at the moment. Let's actually start doing some GROQD. Okay. Cursor is hallucinating. Const, what are we wanting? We're going to do a page query here. And then we're going to declare Q, which we already said before. This is how we initialize our GROQD query. And then we're going to set our parameters. And in here, it's just a simple, type that we're throwing in there. So if you're familiar with TypeScript, we're just going to say, hey, we're going to expect, we're going to expect only a slug to come in and that slug to be a string. And we're going to require that. Now we're going to say star. So we're going to look for everything. We're going to filter by type. And that type is going to be demo. And then we're going to add in our projection. So we're going to project a whole few things here. I'm just going to copy and paste that in instead of type it so you don't have to watch me type all morning. And here we go. Now we have our projection. And it's telling me I'm wrong because I have not imported more things. So as you see here, I have my title and I'm saying, hey, this, I'm expecting it to be a string, I'm expecting it to be optional and nullable. Here it says, hey, you haven't imported your rich text fragment. These are just all things that I've already created so that we don't have to create all of these. And our fragment. Cool. Bingo. Or not bingo. It's still not loving me here. 1 second. Oh, because I haven't imported always while trying to do things live. So I hadn't imported Z. So sometimes I'll use Zod directly from GROQD here instead of using Q. And the reason is Q is big and I just like to split up sometimes the burden of types here. So we have this page query here and we are looking for title. And like I said before, this is going to be a string where it says optional and nullable. We have this excerpt here, which we're saying, hey, this is an array of content blocks, and these content blocks are projected as these rich text fragments over here. It's a little bit bigger, but we all know that rich text can be a little bit more complicated. I have a featured image that is just an image fragment, and you can see the types coming through here. And all of these can be nullable. Now, the last thing we need to do is put our page query through this run query. So let me just copy that in. And bingo. It should work. And if it doesn't, I'm going to cry. Cool. It worked. So now we have our data. And I kind of want to show one more thing that makes this exceptional. Let's just say we take away nullable here, right? Immediately, the query says, this is wrong. I'm expecting this to be a nullable field because that's what I'm getting from, this is what I'm getting from the types that you had generated before. And if I saved this, we'll also get that Zod runtime error of saying, hey, this title, we expected a string, but we received null here. So something was wrong. And so in the development process, immediately I know that my types are wrong. My query could be incorrect. And this is something that could be caught really early in the development process, which helps reduce the amount of QA or client expectation QA that goes on in the end. So let's just go ahead and fix that because I hate red underlines. They stress me out. And now it should work again. Great. So let's go back to the presentation. One moment while I figure out how to do things with computers. Share screen. Great. So I'll wrap this up. In the end, GROQD gave us exactly what we were looking for, a way to write queries that scale, stay in sync with our components, and catch problems before they became bugs. It helped us build faster while without sacrificing quality, and brought our data layer in line with the same kind of rigor we already apply to our UI and business logic. It's not just about type safety, it's about building confidently as a team and at scale. Yeah. Evelina, do you have any questions? Anybody have any questions?
Oh, sorry. I was like, let me figure out how to work this around because I couldn't see myself. But thank you so much. Live demos. I'm super impressed by your ability to do that and just kind of like go ask, like kind of just do it. I always think it's super scary. So thank you so much. I know some people in the chat have been excited and saying, Ross said, talk of this grok type safety is making me feel warm inside. And I couldn't agree more. Like but type safety is like TypeScript a thing where I learned later. And I was like, oh, why do I need it? But then once I learned it, I was like, it's so important. And like, it does really help you in the whole development process, right? So I think this is also super cool where you obviously it's good for you as a developer, it speeds things up and you catch this thing earlier, but it's also good for the end user. So amazing. Thank you so much. I did have some questions I wanted to ask. Obviously, when did you say that you implemented this? You've done it fairly recently, right?
Yes. So I started playing with this a little bit last year, and it was in version 0 at the time. And then
Okay.
I implemented like with WebStacks, I want to say in like February this year.
Okay.
And at that point, it had released its version 1, which massively reskinned its schema. So it took a
Mhm.
little while to redo it, but at this point, like it's much more aware.
Mm.
But yeah, so yeah, just recently, earlier this year, we implemented it.
Okay, so not that long ago, basically. Do
Mhm.
you feel like how has like Grok changed the way your team collaborates? Like, do you feel like it's been a massive difference in these, what is it, 3 months? I can't count. And yeah.
Yeah. One of the coolest things about this is that like we can kind of like we scale fast. We build really fast. Like we sometimes have 2-month deadlines in order to get a site all the way through strategy into design and then into development. And so as like lead developers, we're trying to figure out how can we quickly build the boilerplate that we build. Everybody has buttons, people have heroes, like they have all these elements on the page. And so what I've been able to do with Croc is create nice little packages that we can
Mm,
pull from like in an internal library. And so in there, I
nice.
can have like this fragment of what this hero or this button or this rich text element or something like that, what that looks like, and know that that's going to be ported into the new front end website with all of that type safety in mind. Right. And so we know the shape of it, we know the schema, and we can just easily port that over. So it's really been influential in getting uh, our sites to market quickly.
Nice. So it's kind of like a design system, but for Grok, like Grok or like all these different, like
Exactly.
everything packaged together, which is super nice, right?
Yes.
Lovely. No, I know you said boilerplates and like, people don't want more code, but I think it's always nice, especially when you're developing something quickly to have something to start with. It's always tricky, I think,
Yes.
to start, like to get going. If you can have like some template and then work from there, maybe you want to delete something, maybe you actually want to improve or add, but like as long as it's not an empty page, developers hate to like come up with variable names. I feel like it's that like this is kind of similar.
Yep.
Um, no, it's really cool. Do you think obviously it's early days in your implementation, but it's also early days in Grok's implementation. You said it's version 1. So where do you think do you still think there's like something Grok could improve? What are you hoping for next, basically?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, right now it handles 98% of all of the queries that we can do in Grok. So Grok
Mm,
is incredibly powerful and it has a lot of little cool caveats and tools that you can do, but Grok hasn't predicted all of those yet. It does have a function called raw where you can put raw Grok in there. It's not fully typed and it's not runtime safe, but at least if you have like one of those weird queries that you're trying to like kind of strong arm into there, you can do that.
mm,
I would say its most glaring flaw at the moment would be it is a reskinning of Zod. So if you have a really really big query, sometimes you get that really scary
mm.
uh, the type is too deep, right? I can't remember the exact phrase,
Right.
but it's a too deep of a type, and
Mm,
that's really hard to solve for. But the good thing is I saw just this morning that Zod 4, I think, is released into production. And so I'm going to bug the guys over at Grok being like, hey, adopt this because this is something that has been a Zod issue for a while. And
mm.
they supposedly said they fixed it. So I don't run into this often, but when I do see it, it's like, oh shoot, now I have to restructure some queries. It's a little bit annoying, but it's a trade-off that you have, right? It's
Yeah, it's you always have trade-offs, like, that's true. So, we actually have 2 questions now in the chat. We used the GraphQL API. What are the pros and cons of using Grok, or GraphQL? Graham asks, if you have.
Oh, yeah, fantastic question. GraphQL is fantastic and has been around for a while. I would say that GraphQL has a much broader user base, right? So if your
Mm,
developers aren't familiar with Grok, it's a lot easier to bring them into a new site knowing GraphQL. That said, Grok is more powerful in a way that you can actually define your data. You can do transformations within that data. And the benefit of all the queries within Sanity are
mm,
done with Grok, right? So you're kind of like bringing all of your queries into one language instead of having two separate languages. Like if you're doing a filter within your Sanity environment itself, that's going to be using Grok. And you can't use GraphQL with that. The GraphQL is only just that access point between the two. And so I
mm.
like to have parity between those two systems and make sure that the developers that I'm working with also have that parity and understanding.
I feel like that was a great explanation of, like, we support GraphQL, you can use GraphQL, but Grok is just way powerful, like, if you actually wanna use it, obviously, in tandem with Sanity and, like, query your content. So, and then final question. Sorry, I feel like we're running over a little bit, but I think it's always amazing when people ask questions. So I want to make sure they get answered. And James asked, so Grok is supposed to be used in tandem with TypeGen.
Yes. So TypeGen is going to give you all of the schema there. That way you can feed that into that queue function at the beginning so that Grok knows what the schema is. And so it's going to parse that so that while you're typing, you can say title q dot string and it will say, no, it's a Boolean or the other way around. Hopefully title is not a Boolean. But yes, it's aware of the schema from TypeGen. So yeah, you use them kind of together. So it's really a layer of building on top of an already well-founded system.
Okay, nice. It's always good with extra structured type safety, right? So amazing. Thank you so much.